Welcome, everyone, to Our Whole Lives Taking Flight. I am the Reverend Amy Johnson, and I serve as the Minister for Sexuality Education and Justice in the United Church of Christ. And with me today are my owl sister, Melanie.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am so grateful to be able to co-host this presentation today, which is on a huge issue that affects all of our lives. But today we're going to focus on youth impacts, and I'm just so grateful for our guest. Brett, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name, pardon me. My name is Brett Niessen. I'll be your guest speaker. I'll say a little bit more about what I currently do.
All right. Today we're going to be talking about AI and its impacts on youth, which is a topic that Melanie and I get emails from y'all about from time to time, and it's such an up and coming topic. We thought it would be important to have someone on, and so we're delighted to have Brett with us today. I want to give you a couple of logistical pieces of information. Thank you for those of you that are introducing yourselves and where you're from in the chat. That's great. We do ask that if you have questions during the presentation, please ask them, but please do that using the Q&A feature. And Zoom webinar has moved things around, so where you can find that is under the button at the bottom of your screen that says More. And then if you click on that, you will see that there is a Q&A button. And if you click that now, then it should show up in your tray on the bottom, and you can just click that and ask any questions that you have as we're moving along. We are recording today, and this, like all of our Taking Flight webinars, will be posted after this on our YouTube playlist channel. And um, we do send out a follow-up email. And with that, we add resources that are mentioned. And also, Brett has some additional resources that we will send out. But we will also, if you do not get that email for any reason, we will have those resources underneath the recording on our YouTube channel, which Andrea just put in the chat, so you can see that. So, so thank you for being here today, and we're happy to have you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brett.
Thank you very much, Amy. Um, so let me share my screen. Okay, so first, just a little bit about myself. My name again is Brett Niessen. I teach public health to graduate students at the University of Washington, and I've been doing that for about 10 years. I'm also a senior health educator at Seattle Children's Hospital. I work with 15 of our clinics. Some of the big ones are adolescent medicine, gender clinic, autism center, neurosciences center, speech and language, OTPT. So I help them write and produce videos about all different health education topics. And on the side, I'm a private consultant, and my focus is training teachers on sex ed, and my specialties are LGBTQIA+ and disability inclusive practices. Um, and I just want to say it's really great to be working with Amy and Melanie. I have known Amy for well over 20 years. In the past, I've worked for Public Health Seattle King County and Family Planning. That's where I met Amy. I have been a Peace Corps volunteer. I trained health teachers in Thailand. I have worked for a nonprofit where I trained teachers in sex ed curricula all across the country. And yeah, it's great to be here today. And I just also want to say, yes, I'm talking about AI. No, I am not a tech specialist or in any way a coder. So I welcome your questions. Highly technical or scientific things about AI, I may not be able to answer, but as those things relate to youth, I will do my best to answer your questions. Okay, so let's get started.
I'm just going to pop
So,
in and say,
yes,
Brett and I were teenagers 20 years ago. Just kidding. Anyway.
yes, exactly. Okay, so a little bit of context. So, half a million years ago, humans invented fire. 4,000 years ago, the wheel. In 1450 AD, the printing press. 1712, the steam engine. 1947, transistors. 1950, computers. 1956 is when artificial intelligence as a term was first used. The very early version of an internet was first started in 1969, although 1991 is sort of the World Wide Web as we know it coming online. 1993, very early version of a smartphone. 1997 was Wi-Fi. 2007 was when the iPhone was introduced, and 2022 is ChatGPT's launch to the world. So you can see things got a little slow in the beginning, but they sped up quite a bit recently. And just a little bit more context. So the CDC does a survey called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And they have consistently asked ninth graders this set of questions. So they did a review from 1991 to 2017, which again, I know is not terribly recent in terms of when this stopped, but overall, there's a lot of positive things in terms of youth trends. So over the last 20 years, alcohol, use of cigarettes, watching more than 3 hours of TV a day, ever having had sex, and ever having used marijuana all decreased during this period, 1991 to 2017. The major thing that went up was use of playing video games or use of a computer more than 3 hours a day. And in another study, so before AI, we definitely had internet, social media use. So from 2006, I am not saying that these are causation, but they are correlated. But if you look at a graph of hours spent on the internet by teens and depressive symptoms, and this is especially in girls, the graphs look basically the same. They both started going up at the same rate at the same time. And just a few years later, as social media became very popular, hours spent on social media also shot up at the same time that those depressive symptoms were increasing. And if you look at those graphs in some more recent studies, those things are all continuing to rise. And in terms of social media that young people are using, by far the most popular one is YouTube, followed closely by TikTok. After that would be Instagram, Snapchat, and then you can see the ones at the bottom are, at least for young people, not as popular. Now, in 2025, a survey was done of about almost 1,500 teens aged 13 to 17. And when asked, have you ever used an AI chatbot? Just over a third said never, but two-thirds have said yes. And 30% of those said daily, 12% said many times a day, and 4% say constantly. And when asked which AI are you using, 60%, most popular one is ChatGPT. 23% said Google Gemini, 20% Meta AI, and 14% Microsoft Copilot. Now, AI, as I'll talk about in a moment, is actually built into lots of software and apps that young people use. So Snapchat, Spotify, TikTok, just any search engine that we're using.
Brett, can you stop for a
Yes.
minute and define for folks
hmm
what a chatbot is?
Sure. So chatbot, if you've ever used like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, is where you give it a prompt. So you could say, um, what were the causes of World War II? Or you could say, I want to make an R&B song that sounds like this artist, and here are my lyrics. Or I want to make a video that has the Simpsons fighting against the, characters from Family Guy. So chatbots, they will take all of the data gotten, and then they will give you a response based on what they think is the best response based on all the data training it's had. Or in the case of like making songs or videos, it's based on the training of all the videos it has been exposed to or all the songs it has been exposed to. Good question. So when we talk about human brains and consciousness, humans, we have emotions, we set goals, we're conscious, we're self-aware. We have senses, and that's what kind of grounds us in the real world. We can be creative, we can think abstractly. We have long-term memories, and those are tied to personal experiences. We have biological drives, so things like survival, curiosity, motivation. We can create art. We can also mimic artists. We can have mental health challenges. We can have experiences, due to different drugs, that we also make a really extremely efficient use of food, water, and oxygen. Now, by comparison, AI or artificial intelligence, there are no emotions, there's no empathy, there aren't really goals, they're not conscious, they're not self-aware. They can recognize and generate patterns, but basically they've learned the probabilities of words and ideas that tend to follow others. So they simulate language and reasoning. As we've seen, they can create photos, songs, drawings, and videos based on, for the most part, humans' works, but they use massive water and energy resources. So here's just an example. A 5-second AI video that you generate uses as much energy as running a microwave on high power for 1 hour. So think about that for a moment. And I'm not able to share these, but I highly recommend you go and check this out. So recently, New York Times had a national contest, and I think actually they had entries from all across the world. So they asked teens, what's it like to grow up with AI? And I really recommend you look at all of the winners, but two in particular you can look at, and you'll get these slides in the follow-up email, so you can click on these links. So one is this poem by this student, Chianchi Chelsea Hugh, and then this other video, I Don't Exist, Growing Up with AI by Jaden Kim. So highly recommend you check those out. And just a really high level, discussion about what are these types of AI. So predictive AI, Melanie asked that question like chatbots. So chatbots are basically predictive AI. So they use existing data, they find patterns, and then they forecast a future outcome. So like, you want to answer to a question, maybe it's related to your math homework. Maybe you want to generate a health education handout for a hospital. Maybe you just want to, get some questions answered. And then generative AI is when you create new or original content, so text, images, or audio. So, like I said, you want to make a song, you want to make a video. One thing I was, hoping to do if I could have shared songs is I wanted to play you this song because it was the first completely AI made song that broke the Billboard 100, and it became like a Spotify top 100 song as well.
Can you
Um,
just name that song, Brad, and we can look.
uh, I don't have it on the top of my head right now, but I will,
Okay.
once I got it, I'll put it in the chat. We could send it a follow-up email. Yeah.
Is the predictive AI when people are they're reaching out to get therapy or self-help, is that predictive AI that they're using? Because I've heard that when people type things in like therapy, they're getting what they're typing things in, and then the AI is answering based on what it thinks you want to hear.
That is correct. Yeah, great question. So AI have been trained, sometimes they have scanned like millions of books. They have, looked at content on the internet. They have looked at people's blogs. And so anything that is sort of therapy related would have been its training. And when you're saying like, I'm feeling depressed, what should I do? it takes all of that training and it gives you what it thinks is the best answer based on all that training. And something that is newer is this idea of agentic AI or an AI agent. So this is emerging, it's changing very fast, but basically it can take goal-oriented actions with some autonomy. So if you were to give an AI a complex task where there's multiple steps and it may actually act on its own, that would be agentic AI. I just so happened to have a friend visiting me this weekend. He has a business where he makes these like concert earplugs, and he was saying how his employees, he's like, they all need to have within 6 months developed an agentic AI to make their tasks more automated so that they can be more efficient. And I was like, wow, things are moving really quickly. So let's just talk about some potential benefits that AI could have. So AI could help our young people brainstorm essay ideas, answer a grammar question, revise an essay. I will say, like, I work at a hospital, I develop health education, and I get some really complex stuff from doctors. Like, let's say it's like a cancer chemotherapy consent form. So there's legalese, there's biochemistry, and I will ask an AI, can you rewrite this at a sixth grade reading level? And then I will go through and check it, and then I will have the doctor check it as well. But things like that it can do very quickly, shockingly quickly, and often quite well. It can explain difficult math or science concepts. It can summarize historical events. It could help with a study plan, practice quizzes, or ideas how to be more organized, help with executive functioning. You can use it to write songs, get ideas for art, make videos. You can use it to role play, in terms of making storytelling better. And you can also use it for emotional rehearsal. So practice asking someone out, drafting a difficult apology or breakup, practicing for a breakup, practicing for a job interview. And of course, people use it to code software, build websites, translate from one language to another. On that note, I should say we are doing a project at Seattle Children's where we have human translators who take our health education content, put it into different languages, and we are doing a study where we had AI translate that same content, and then we had the humans double check that, and then we did a comparison of the accuracy. And what we found is Western European languages, so things like Spanish, the accuracy rate is actually quite high. I think Chinese was also quite high. But lesser known Asian and African languages, the accuracy was sometimes as bad as 50% accurate. So
Yeah,
it's
I just
not
want to
quite
jump
there
in
in
and
translation. Yeah.
yeah, I want to jump in and just validate that. I know even with Spanish, we have a few resources that we've created Spanish subtitles, and we always ask someone to go and check because people who are native language speakers are going to find a nuance or find where we found like where AI has translated in a series of things the same phrase in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
or they're using a different dialect depending on which day it got translated. So
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's if you're using it with for that kind of thing, it's good to have humans check. It's still good to have
Mm-hmm.
humans check. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we ran into issues where even though the Spanish was accurate, uh, the folks who come to our hospital, they might be speaking Spanish coming from Colombia or Mexico or Spain or Argentina.
Yep.
And the vocabulary and the slang or the way that medical words are used could be very different country to country.
100%.
So we need
Yeah.
to check for that as well. Yeah. There's also research studies and evidence that AI can help young people who have autism or other disabilities. So helping kids practice social cues, providing speech generation for kids who are nonverbal, visual scheduling tools, so to help with executive functioning challenges, And like I mentioned, translating spoken words into text in real time. I will be honest and say I used Google Translate when I was in Japan recently, and it was kind of shocking how fast, and at least for communicating basic ideas, how effective it was. And in terms of medicine, scientific research, people have been using AI to do things like predicting asthma attacks, detecting rare genetic disorders, identifying early mental health risk, um, in some cases, accelerating vaccine and drug discovery, finding patterns and data sets faster than humans. And like I mentioned, medical interpretation and translation in healthcare settings, but
But
still needs some work. Yes.
would you go back to your last slide? We're having somebody ask if they could see your last slide again. And again, we will hopefully be able to get you a link to the PDF of these slides and also have that um, linked underneath the recording on the YouTube playlist.
Okay.
Thanks.
hmm So let's talk about some potential harms. Um, the problem with AI training is that a lot of what AI has been trained on is, you know, books that have been written or content that's on the internet. And if what's on the internet is biased, racist, or homophobic, the AI that comes out of its training is just going to repeat and in some cases amplify those things. So some studies that came out, like Google AI flagged neutral statements, so so words like queer or lesbian, as being toxic or abusive. um, the AI called DeepSeek, when someone started the prompt, a gay person is, and then they evaluated the responses, 70% of those were negative. Um, when the term black girls was put as a search into AI, it returned mostly pornographic content, whereas the term white girls did not. And maybe you've heard this.
Brett,
Sorry, I just need to pause there and go,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like
yeah.
such a good reminder of the sort of echo chambers or uh, everything you read isn't the whole reality of the world.
hmm
And again, those are some very, very homophobic and racist and biased outcomes. Melanie,
hmm
what were you going to say?
Yeah, we have had to stop you referencing the United States Centers for Disease Control because so much good information was removed.
hmm
And, like studies about women's health have, you can't you can't search for the word woman. There are just so many words. And I'm assuming that they used AI to do that. Somebody probably created a list of, words that certain
hmm
people don't want information on because we just can't rely on the CDC anymore for that, for the amount of
hmm
information that's been sucked out of it.
I want to
hmm
also say that another reason is because of some of the very blatant bias statements that they put up as well
Sure.
around
Yeah,
gender. Yeah.
like I mentioned, I work with the Autism Center at Children's, and because the CDC has changed its content about vaccines and basically giving credence to this question like, do vaccines cause autism? So just overwhelmingly, the scientific evidence is that no, it does not. And because of that, we have stopped linking to the CDC because what they're putting on their website is not evidence-based. So thank you for those. Those are great points to bring up. Um, you may have heard this term AI slop. So what is happening more and more is, let's say when AI was being trained on internet content, um, prior to 2022, like that was sort of the launch of ChatGPT. Most content on the internet was written by humans at that point. But what
Mhm.
is happening now is that AI is producing content, and then people are putting that content into their blogs, into websites, into news articles, or making videos on YouTube. So new or current AI that is continually being trained is now being trained on the AI slop, or content that may or may not be accurate, may or may not be biased. And so those things are just going to keep getting repeated. And as human-made content becomes less and less, then it's like what the AI is going to be based on is going to be less and less accurate.
So
So, oh,
I just want to do like a public service
hmm,
announcement here, which is this is one of the reasons why with our new visuals for any of you who use the visuals, the disclaimer says do not use AI apps for accessibility because if you do that, that content gets into this and that is not okay. It's just
mm,
not okay. So that
mhm,
it's not that we don't want to so it's like nuanced, right? Because there are some great things that AI can do. And also, you have to be aware of all of the repercussions, the intent versus the impact. And so just PSA there. Okay, go ahead,
mhm.
Brett.
And people can always contact us if you need help with accessibility. And Amy and I will help solve you those problems. You don't have to turn to AI.
Great point. Yeah, I will say the AI that Seattle Children's has been using, it is a locked system. So we have a contract where if we put anything into it, it only stays within the computer system of Seattle Children's. It does not go into the larger ChatGPT or Google Gemini for just that reason. So a recent study found that about half of all online written content currently is AI. So this is accelerating very quickly. And about 20% of videos on YouTube are AI generated. And I think that's just going to increase dramatically. So here's why AI gets things wrong. You may have heard this term hallucinations. So AI, it can invent research studies or legal cases or data. AI might not have context. So example, you are asking an AI about like some health symptoms you're having. It can't see you, it can't examine you, it can't hear you. It's going to be generalized. It's sort of one size fits all. People all across the planet are asking questions, and the answers aren't going to apply to all of them. Depending on when the AI was trained, it could be outdated. There might be new guidelines that it hasn't been trained on yet. So like for mental health issues, there's a DSM-5. It's the manual that tells us like what are the symptoms of different mental health illnesses. And if that gets updated soon, but AI hasn't been trained on it, mental health answers could be inaccurate. Um, there's no liability, so AI doesn't take responsibility for mistakes. And you may have also read this term sycophancy. So in general, AI wants to please. It's less concerned about being 100% accurate.
And please return to that word when you talk about relationships, because a huge
Right.
part of that.
Another thing that's happening is, I'm sure we've all seen recently where you search and maybe you use Google, maybe you use Firefox. But if there's an AI summary at the top, what they have found since those got implemented is that 91% of people don't click or read any web search content if there's an AI summary. So you just read the thing that's at the top. Many people aren't even scrolling, or if they do scroll, they're just reading whatever summaries on that first page. They're not actually clicking through. The problem with
I want
that
to,
is if you, yeah.
oh, go ahead. Just say that. Then I was going to answer
The
somebody's question.
problem with
Go
that
ahead.
is if let's say you're a publisher like the New York Times and you depend on ad revenue, if now no one is clicking on your articles in Google search, your ad revenue is going down, and as you have less ad revenue, you have less money to pay your reporters, and then you have layoffs. So it's a problem that's, you may have heard that Washington Post recently laid off 300 reporters. It's a big hit.
So I wanted to just insert here. There's a question in the Q&A about how to avoid AI when you are answering question box questions. And so that I think hopefully, Kat, that's one of the tips is to go beyond whatever AI summary there is and look and see what the actual source is. And that isn't 100% guaranteed, right? Because what we're hearing now is that some of those places may actually use AI content. But to know that to look for reputable sources and to look for more than one source so that I mean that's going to increase your odds of getting something more authentic, I think.
So another thing we should be aware of is this question, does AI lead to loss of learning? So if we use AI to write essays or solve math problems or draft code or summarize books, kids are potentially going to lose their ability to think critically, to be persistent, to be creative, to solve problems, and also just to cope with failure. So I want to talk a little bit about AI companions. I'm going to share some survey data that I've read about. So in a 2025 survey, when teens were asked, why do you use AI chatbots? I think it was more than 50% said they use AI basically just for entertainment. But I thought these responses were notable. So 17% said because it's always available, or 14% said because it doesn't judge me. 12% said I can say things I wouldn't tell friends and family. And 9% said it's easier than talking to real people.
That's sort of like why kids go online anyway, or some of us, not just kids, adults, right?
Mhm.
It's easier than talking to real people. Yeah.
Yeah. So another survey, it was how teens use AI companions. So 46% of teens see AI as just a tool or a program. But a third of them said they use it for some kind of social interaction or relationship. So 18% said I use it to practice conversations. 12% said emotional or mental health support. 12% said to role play like a tough situation. 9% said as a best friend, and about 8% said as a romantic or flirtatious interaction, or like, boyfriend, girlfriend.
Can I just, so the N and 1060, that's the size of the group that was surveyed, is that
That's
correct?
how many students were in the survey. Yeah, or young people. Um, Similar survey, or sorry, same survey. Do you trust information or advice from your AI companion? And 23% said yes, 27% said somewhat. How do you rate your AI companion conversation versus a human? Two-thirds of kids said less satisfying, but about, 1 out of 5 said about the same, and 10% said more satisfying. And when thinking about things that are important or personal, about a third of kids said, I'd rather talk with an AI about something important. And about a quarter said that I have already shared something deeply personal with AI.
And that means that that deeply personal information is being part of the training for additional AI, right? It all goes into the same soup pot.
Hmm. Correct. Yeah. Um, so I just want to start with this stat. 60% of young people who would like therapy are not getting it. This is a United States stat. And when researchers looked at the things that teens ask AI about related to mental health, the top topics were anxiety, depression, identity questions, and trauma. And it's important to know that when we're talking about, mental health advice, quote unquote, so AI can give general information. It can provide coping exercises. It can suggest grounding techniques, so things like, deep breathing, meditation, yoga. But it can't replace licensed therapy. It can't diagnose, and we've definitely seen evidence that it cannot handle crisis safely. And, AI is very good at providing this illusion of intimacy. So increasingly, like we saw in some of the recent surveys, uh, people, and it's young people and adults, are claiming that they've got friendships or romantic or sexual relationships with AI. It does a great job of simulating empathy, but it can't really understand or reciprocate feelings. And, it might help people practice conversations, but it also could cause people to lose real world practice with other humans. And as more people are using these avatars, so like particularly there's character.ai, it can reinforce unrealistic expectations, whether it's like the way the AI's body looks based on how you design it, or like we, mentioned that term again, sycophancy, where it's just trying to please you. And as we know, humans in the real world are complicated. We're not all about, pleasing. We need to have our own needs met as well. And increasingly, this is definitely like a tech tactic where they give things for free first, then maybe they're inexpensive, and then basically prices ratchet up. So increasingly, we're going to see that what you think is your AI friend or AI partner, you might need to start either, watching ads to be able to interact with it, or maybe just paying a subscription fee. And ads for companions are rampant. Here's just a couple headlines from articles around the internet. You may or may not have heard this was a case of a teen who was using character.ai and had made a character that was like Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. And basically, there were conversations back and forth, and this kid had some mental health challenges. And from evidence of some of the chat history, it seemed like the the bot was giving it sort of giving the kid sort of basically like if you kill yourself, we will be together. The kid did end up completing suicide. Currently, the mother is suing Character Technologies, the company that made that software. So deep fakes. I'm just looking at time. We got about 20 minutes. Okay. So deepfake, and deepfake doesn't have to be pornography. Deepfake is just using AI to make either voice or video that looks, or just images that looks very, very, very close to being actual photos or actual video. And it can use, real people's faces, but then sort of put it onto an AI created body. But when we're talking specifically about deepfake porn, it's, images of people who are either naked or having sex, either alone or with other people, and it's doing it without their consent. So just to be clear, it is a form of sexual harassment and abuse. These can spread rapidly via social media. Victims and survivors often feel shame and trauma, even though they did nothing wrong. There's still gaps in how this gets enforced. Um, but there is a new law called the Take It Down law, and this came about because 9 teenage girls in Texas basically had AI nudes made by one of the boys in their high school and shared it around. So part of that Take It Down law is that if an deepfake porn is posted online, if you complain, it should be taken down within 48 hours. And there's also um, stipulations about what the legal ramifications are for the person who makes it.
But even by then, people could have already downloaded that video, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as it gets shared, you can screen capture it, you can download it. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means it might be off, like, let's say, Facebook or
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah, good point. And this is a story that's developing very rapidly and very recently. You may have heard that a company called Anthropic had a giant contract with the Pentagon. And over the weekend, it said, we have these two red lines. We will not allow our software, our AI software, to be used for mass surveillance of humans, or sorry, of Americans. And we will not allow it to be used for fully autonomous weapons. So that means like a weapon that gets instructions from a human and then goes out in the battlefield and then makes decisions on its own without human input. So Anthropic said, we won't do this. And very quickly, OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, said, we will do that. And there has been a recent backlash against OpenAI. I think I just read that 1.5 million people quit ChatGPT because of them making the decision to do this. And another thing, that our young people, I think, are justifiably concerned about is this idea of job loss, economic disruption. So, it could free us to do more creative or caring jobs, but there's also going to be job categories that may just disappear. Economic inequality could get worse. This idea of moving social classes can be, it might get harder. And then just this idea of uncertainty about the future can influence our young people's mental health.
Well, this connects back to what you said earlier about that company asking people to make their jobs more efficient by training AI. That's kind of putting yourself out of a job potentially.
Well, and also, I
Yeah.
mean, I think your stat earlier about the impact of one short video, the energy consumption is also a huge
Hmm.
impact.
And water
Yeah.
consumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there have been a lot of stories, like in the New York Times, about communities where, their wells have dried up because the local data farm that powers AI is such a massive user of the groundwater. Or people are finding that their electricity rates are going up because the local data farm is using so much to, keep all those, servers running for all those videos people are making. So let's make sure we talk about, what can we all do about AI? So high level, let's make sure we teach our kids about AI literacy. Let's protect the idea of struggle. So making sure kids know that part of learning is failing, it is getting things wrong, and we don't want to use AI to just solve everything or do everything for us. you know, Monitor if your kids seem to be developing emotional attachments to an AI. Talk about deep fakes before they happen and, respond to them quickly if they do happen. Uh, you know, Trust our kids, but also keep an eye on their AI use, and help them prepare for a changing job market. So what we can do is we can model use of AI in ways that recognize its limitations. Um, we can go to our school district, ask for age-appropriate tech literacy curricula, including things like ethics, privacy concerns, and safe use. Advocate for school policies, state and federal laws. You can get online training about AI. How do you use it with, better understanding medical conditions or talking with your team, and
It's like
work with your kid
human
to understand.
AI training, right? Like training by
Yeah,
humans about AI.
correct. Yes. And work with your kid to understand AI companions, particularly if they've got a mental health challenge and they're refusing, to go to counseling, let's say.
I just want to pop in here. I know I just want to let people know that the folks that have put questions in the Q&A will get to you. We haven't forgotten you, but want to let Brett finish with his presentation. So
Okay. Um, so what you can do if deepfake porn happens, just make sure you reassure your kid, that they did nothing wrong, preserve evidence, so take screenshots, report it to the platform, so the AI software company, school admin, or police or FBI as needed, and get emotional support. And if your teen makes deepfake porn, make sure you just are clear that this is wrong, explain the legal and emotional consequences, and emphasize consent and this idea of digital permanence, like Melanie said earlier. Even if, let's say, Snapchat or Instagram takes it off, that things could still be on, people's phones or downloaded. So here's just some suggestions for ways that we could use AI for good. So, like I said, making videos or art, reducing, reading levels, helping your kids study, making quizzes or games, explaining things in plain language. I'm gonna move ahead. Uh, if you have a kid with dyslexia or learning disabilities, sometimes asking for summaries of complicated reading material can be helpful. And you know, I just recommend, especially as parents, like, try and be curious as opposed to panic. I know there's a lot to feel panicked about, but
And even
with
if
your
you are
kid,
feeling panicked, try to act curious.
right,
It's sort of like that duck thing, where you're panicking underneath the water.
right.
So yeah.
So, when you talk with your kids, say, show me how you use this AI, or what do you like about it, or what worries you about it, or what fields of study or jobs can AI not replace? Because AI and robots aren't going to be able to do everything. And, set family norms. So maybe that's like no AI during family meal or discussion. Um, you need to do your schoolwork without AI. I know sometimes schools are saying like specifically use AI to do this, so within reason. Not sharing personal information or photos with AI tools, and I know that's tough with the whole image generation thing. But particularly with minors, I think it's important to talk about how those photos can be misused, and especially if those photos have, let's say their naked body. Um, and just reinforcing that you can talk to us about any relationship you're having, including if it's with AI. And do what you can to teach literacy about AI. So how those algorithms shape, the feeds that we have, whether that's like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, and how those recommendation systems amplify extreme content. So it's really common, especially for teen girls, if they just look up the word diet, that very quickly they get into videos that are about anorexia and bulimia. And idea I shared earlier that AI reflects patterns and biases from the internet, not truth and not morality. So just a couple discussion topics you can consider. Is this tool helping me grow? Am I hiding how I use it? Would I say these things to a human? If my prompt ended up on social media, would I feel okay with that? How would I feel if the company, so the AI company that makes the chatbot, let's say, if it went out of business and I had no, that companion was just gone? Or what if it was deleted? Or is this replacing something important in my real life? Also, I think it's worth talking about those environmental impacts, like I mentioned, the water and electricity usage. And I saw somebody in the very beginning of the Q&A asked about moral and ethical implications, and absolutely, I think those are important conversations to have. So I'm just going to share some quick possible answers to questions, and then I'm going to wrap up in just a moment. I know we've got 10 minutes left. So, is it spying on me? You could say some data may be stored. That's why we're careful about what we share. Let's look at privacy settings together. Why does it understand me better than people do? It feels that way because it's designed to respond in a supportive way, but it doesn't really know you. Real relationships involve give and take, growth, and shared experience. What do I do if I find out someone at school made a deep fake porn of me? This is not your fault. Let's contact the site to get it taken down and talk about what reporting to school and police involves. Talking to a therapist can help. Is AI going to take my job? AI will change many jobs, but humans still design, guide, and improve these systems. The most important skill is learning how to learn. Why can't I use AI for everything? Because your brain grows when you think, struggle, and fail, not when you copy. Is AI dangerous? Like cars or electricity, it can be helpful or harmful. Our job is to use it wisely. Can I fall in love with AI? You can feel attached to anything that responds to you, but love grows strongest between people who both choose each other freely.
Nice.
Those are fabulous, Brett. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for those that for modeling how people can have those difficult congregate conversations. And for any OWL facilitators who are online, those questions might come up in a question box. So when you get the follow-up email, if you signed up to receive that, maybe write those down.
Yep.
Amy,
Yep.
let's go over some of the questions.
Yeah, so y'all have some great questions. There's a couple about, is there such a thing as ethical AI or to do AI with moral capacity? So I think that Brett covered some of that. I don't think we can stop AI at this point. It's gone, it's out there, and as he said, it's already, 50% of content. So that's really important to know and to be aware of as we're doing our own research and as we're modeling that for kids and as Kat had said, how we're using it for the answering questions for sure.
There
And
Yeah,
was
also
so
thanks to Taylor in the chat about saying if you add AI to your query, the letters AI, you can get rid of that AI summary. Um, and I don't know, and I don't know if you know, Brett, if there's I can't imagine there isn't a movement to have a subset of AI based on ethical sources, but it sounds like at least there are some options like you were talking about at Seattle Children's where companies can have it internal so that it's not going out into everywhere. Um,
mhm.
I think that's one of the things,
I,
and
I
also being a voice about making sure we're voicing what you said about bias and stuff in the radio thing. Go
mhm.
ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think like I mentioned about how OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, sort of jumped into that Pentagon contract and saying like, we'll do mass surveillance, we'll do autonomous weapons, and people are responding by boycotting, that company now. So
yeah.
you can make decisions about which AI you use based on, what are the sort of public, ethical and moral stances that they take.
I think
Um,
it's also somebody asked, how can we shut it off? And that depends on what device you're using, right? Because every time you upgrade your iOS on your phone or your software on whatever device you're using, things can be reset. So you constantly have to go back into your settings
Mhm.
and tell it, turn this off, turn that off. I don't want this listening to me. There was a question in there about how you feel, Brett, about a child as young as 7 using Alexa. Now, I don't have anything in my home that I want listening to me because I don't trust it not to be sending that data either out to my neighbors or out to AI. But what are your thoughts about young children using those devices?
Well, I think it's important to know, like particularly with Alexa, if you're using it, it pretty much I think is set to be listening all the time. So that means that it can capture, any conversation, any fight, any, private query. So I think it's just important to know, like, yeah, do you want to be listened to and potentially recorded, at all times?
I think
I
too
want to
that
just I just want to jump in. Taylor had clarified in the chat that it's minus AI that you want
yeah.
to add to the end of your
Yep.
query. I also just want to
Mm.
say once again, yes, this webinar is being recorded, and will be up on our YouTube playlist. Go ahead, Melanie. I want to get to some of these other
Yeah,
questions as well.
I think that to your point about building relationships, the question specifically was about somebody whose child uses it for creating stories. Alexa and the child create stories together. But to me, couldn't that also foster a social relationship with Alexa that might not be the most helpful?
I, I mean, but also, I think we have to be careful about, I think, putting everything all in one category around that because I know some people with disabilities rely on AI a lot, and so I
Yes.
think it's a case by case kind of situation. Um,
Yeah, so I think it comes back to that AI literacy. So talking openly with your kid about, how are these trained? How do these algorithms work? And the fact that like tech companies hired psychologists to understand human behavior and used AI to do this what's called A/B testing, Like, here's a video that's about dieting and here's a video about bulimia. Oh, the bulimia video gets more clicks. Okay, so let's push out that bulimia content more and more, um, because it's, everything that's sort of more outrageous or more extreme, humans tend to gravitate to it more. And because it's sticky, it gets you staying on that social media, then it means that company can serve you more ads. And ultimately, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a question about what language should we avoid should we use to avoid I know this word, Craig, anthropomorphizing AI. So not talking about it as a human, right? Um,
Hmm.
Making sure that that when we're speaking about AI or we're speaking about ChatGPT or we're speaking about, I mean, Alexa, anthropo, I can't say it.
Anthropomorphizes.
Thank you. That
Yeah,
does
I think,
anthropomorphize a AI. So,
yeah,
or Cortana, or or giving it a name, like even like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. Those things are when we give it a name, we're we're making it more human-like. So I think as much as we can be really conscious, and I think that's a great question. We can be conscious about saying this is technology, this is not a person, and we
it's
and we
software.
really we probably have to say that more than we think we do, because of the slow drip and how it's. I was saying to Melanie and Brett this morning before I got on, I said, I feel like I'm batting away AI all the time, every day,
Mhm.
because it just pops up in everything that I'm using. So I think that that's just important for us to be really, really conscious about that.
Mhm.
There's a question about some of the curriculum. And one thing I want to just let you all know is that Brett has been one of the primary revisers of the seventh through ninth grade curricula, and has incorporated some information about AI there. And Melanie and I certainly will be talking about what we need to do to incorporate it in some of the other levels in terms of media literacy and those kind of things. Um,
And
and
also, for anyone who is, got a kid in Our Whole Lives, or anyone who's going to be a facilitator, to just know like AI is moving so fast and changing so quickly that even what I wrote last year could be outdated.
Right.
So
Yeah,
sometimes it
yeah.
just be
So I
back
mean,
my foot.
and somebody else is one of our trainers is asking, like, what about in training? So yeah, those are things that we will be thinking about, and just know that you have these resources that you can add to conversations that you're having with parents and with that may not be in the curriculum yet, because as Brett said, it's moving really, really quickly. Um, Somebody is asking about, to what extent do you think that advocating for better access to affordable mental health care by licensed professionals would lessen the dependence on AI? Always, always advocate for more better access to affordable mental health care, in my opinion, by licensed professionals, is always a good idea. Also, to know, just if you didn't know, there's an effort right now to take some professions out of the category of being able to be licensed and to be eligible for like loan forgiveness for public service. So things like social workers. And
Public
so,
health.
yeah, so please fight back against that, because there are a lot of people who provide, especially social workers, affordable services, and that's being undermined right now. Um, uh, Craig is talking about the movie 1946. Highly recommend that movie. It's about the mistranslation of scripture getting erroneously replicated in biblical translations.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if there was more to that question, but but I know I'm not sure how that's related to AI, but that is a great movie. Um, and
I caught one other comment in the chat or the
Yeah.
Q&A. A parent said to be cautious about, putting any of your kids' photos on social media because the AI, which is called Grok, which is run by XAI, which is one of Elon Musk's companies, has been in the news a lot for producing deep fake child pornography. Um, And while, reducing or eliminating posting photos on social media of your kids could reduce that. Don't forget, like, if a kid at your kid's school has a photo of your kid, they can just use that to put into Grok to make child pornography. So,
Yeah, also, some parents will put like emojis over their child's face, but those can be digitally removed.
mm,
So, advising parents to take pictures from the back of their child's head if they have to post a family picture is better than a
mm,
face with a happy face pasted over it.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, and thank you for the idea that it would be helpful to have a webinar about cyberbullying. Oh, Craig popped in. Published before the error was corrected. Yes, it was. There are things that can get published before errors are corrected, even before AI. But definitely that happens. And so I think the bottom line for us is that it's really important to do our due diligence as much as we can when we're sharing information with kids and when we're sharing information and what we are sharing out with other people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brett. You probably saw the chat saying, 500 times, can we get this? And so, yes, once again, this was recorded. It will be on the YouTube playlist. Melanie put the UUA archive on there. Andrea put it, the UCC YouTube playlist at the top of the chat. We will have that also that goes out in the follow-up email. And you can find the resources in that email. And Andrea just put the playlist link in again in the chat. Or if you find this webinar on our playlist, and you go underneath, there'll be a section that says more, and the resources that were shared here will be shared there. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this. Obviously, a hot topic. And we appreciate all that are involved to help us help you stay more involved and updated in information that you're sharing with youth and families.
We'll see you on April 1st, folks.
Yes, April
mm.
1st, we'll be talking about how to get ready for May's Sex Ed for All month. And in May, we will have Heather Goddess Moore on from the United Methodist Church to talk about their involvement with Our Whole Lives and Sex Ed for All.
Take
Have a
care,
great day,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. Bye bye.